The film Brian Banks is centered around the true life story of a rising football star. At the age of 16, Brian was accused of raping a girl in the hallway at his high school. Brian Banks was a star football player whose talent was unbelievable. After the young girl accused Brian of rape, Banks was charged with rape and kidnapping. In his court date, Brian was given a plea bargain. Little did the 16-year-old know the plea bargain included a 6-year jail time sentence, 3 years of probation after jail, as well as being a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. The jury on the court date was all white, and Brian's lawyer basically demanded him to make the decision himself without any help from his mother. Being that the jury was all white, Banks decided to take the plea bargain. Little did he know the plea bargain would affect him for the rest of his life. After getting out of jail, which was an unbelievably tough time, Brian realized he was not able to go near parks or merely anywhere with children, had to stay so close in distance to his home, and was unable to get a job. Brian applied everywhere for jobs, and once employers saw he was a registered sex offender, he was sent on his way. Little did everyone know, Brian Banks did not rape the girl. She made it all up. Set out to overrule the messed up California criminal justice system, Brian Banks was on a mission to prove his innocence and get his life back. Brian Banks is fighting against the current. In the world we live in, all the white jury sees is a big black man who harmed a young innocent girl. Who is the world going to believe? All the white people saw was a black man who grew up on the wrong side of town. Not one piece of evidence was looked at. DNA samples were taken. Do you think the negative results of the samples were looked at in court? No, absolutely not. The hallway the young girl was supposedly drugged down by Brian Banks was full of open-door classrooms, full of students, and full of teachers. How did anyone not hear him supposedly dragging her down the hallway? Why did no one look at this evidence? California's justice system is failing us. Underfunding of the justice system has caused the system to fail even more. What did funding have to do with Brian Banks, an innocent young man with a whole future ahead of him? If California is low on funding, why would you not work to keep people out of the prisons? After digging and doing some research, California has many unreported rapes. A young girl has actually stepped up and expressed she has been raped. The fact the accused rapist was black did not help. Brian Banks grew up on the wrong side of town where crime ran rabid. Crime was what Brian Banks knew, but wanted to stay far away from. Brian Banks was different, but did the court see that? Absolutely not. Brian Banks was known to them as a black kid who grew up in the crime-infested town. Using the crime to his advantage, Brian Banks strived for better. Football was Brian's out. Scholarship, the NFL, his passion. Football gave Brian a strive for success and the young accuser of rape. Ruined that for the star. Football was Brian's forever happiness and kept him out of trouble. Why would somebody accuse a star of rape? Money was the answer. After the sentencing, Kenesha Rice, the girl who accused Brian Banks of rape, received $1.5 million. Trying to prove his innocence, Banks set out to talk to Kenesha. Kenesha confessed to Brian that he never raped her. He had her on tape. Okay, case closed. Absolutely not. In the state of California, one cannot be filmed without consent. Brian had all the evidence he needed, but the corrupt judicial system failed him. Brian needed another piece of evidence to prove his innocence. Why was Brian having to prove his innocence? Isn't the saying innocent until proven guilty? Not in Brian's case. Brian had to prove his innocence just like many others in the state. Brian filed habeas corpus and the grant was approved. Kenesha wanted nothing more to keep the money, not even to help a friend out, even if it meant proving his innocence and giving a man the rest of his life back that she had taken away. The lady took away his innocence. The court system of California failed the striving man. The world failed the striving man. Brian Banks was a great example of how corrupt our court system is, and that being a black man in a dominantly white country is tough and difficult. Brian Banks, a black male, fought for his innocence and proved to the whole world and the court system his greatness. Money is the greatest all evil, and the film proves that. Kenesha would say absolutely anything to get the court to believe her. Brian wouldn't take that for an answer. Depicted in the film, blacks are pressured under laws and white people to be forced into the stereotypical society. Brian proved the world wrong. We the people are the problem. Court systems do not see the injustices. Should we, the people, point out the problem? We, the people, should stand together to form a society of equality and a system against racism and injustice. The jury are people, mixed of different forms. California put all white people on Brian Brooks's jury. If the people did not stereotype Brian as a black criminal from the hood, in quotations, he would not have been put in the position he was put in. In a society that is meant for equality, as the white people on the jury, we the people were part of the unjust criminal system in California on that day. The judge, who was of different ethnicity, has part of the ruling, but the jury mainly decides the verdict. The people of California failed the young man. The problem did not just start with the jury, though. The problem starts with us, a society as a whole. Brian Banks appointed the leader of the California Innocence Project. Guess what? The leader was white. The white man had faith in Brian Brooks, a black man. That is where society starts. Society starts with taking leaps of faith for people of difference. Without the belief of Justin Brooks, the leader of the California Innocence Project, and Brian Banks, no justice would have been given to the striving young innocent man. Equality and justice starts with you, with the belief in someone you never thought you would have faith in. Take that leap of faith to conquer the impossible. Prove others wrong, just like Brian Banks and Justin Brooks proved the world wrong.